Welcome to the Filmistines, the double feature podcast. Join us as we unravel the interwoven experience of the continuous conversation of cinema. Take part in pairing movies with their cursed counterparts, movies that share DNA, or even pairing questionable duos by joining our Patreon at patreon.com/Filmistines. We offer tiers at the $1, $5, and $20 level, where the $5 tier will grant the ability to request films to further the discussion. So grab some popcorn, sit back, and get ready to join the 100-year conversation. This is the Filmistines, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're an experience.
They're an experience.
All around you. And welcome back to another episode of the Filmistines. Thank you guys for joining us. I'm joined today by my rice-eating friend, Lucy.
Hello, everyone.
You can join us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for brand new episodes of the Filmistines. Some recent episodes include Gigi's Little Women, our 2024 Oscar nomination reactions, Disney's new film Wish, Illumination's new film Migration, and Celine Song's great film Past Lives. Remember to leave nice comments, thoughts, and ideas over on our Patreon. Come request a movie, come subscribe. We appreciate all the support. Thank you guys.
Are you stressed and filled with anxiety like I am? Maybe in a bit of pain from that car accident you had a few years ago? Well, the sponsor of today's episode, Hempville CBD, has us covered. They have the highest quality products created by chemists and doctors. Hempville carries everything from CBD to THC dispensary grade without those despicable dispensary prices. Order your Delta 8, 9 edibles and vapes along with the THCA flower and get free shipping when you spend $50 or more at hempvillecbd.com. Check out the link in the description for more details.
But today we are discussing Anthony Shim's 2022 film, Riceboy Sleeps. This is a very interesting film. I'm very curious what you have to say about it because it's very moody. But I'm happy to report back that I liked this film very much. What did you think of Riceboy Sleeps?
I really liked it. I liked the whole entire movie from front to end. You know, it wasn't something spectacular or something I would put on a, you must watch list, but I would definitely recommend it to somebody. I really like how tender this movie was and just kind of sensitive it was. And just sensitive in a way that's appreciative of other people's feelings. Not that David here was sensitive, although he kind of was, but, that's beside the point. And it stuck with the mood the whole movie, which I appreciated that. We didn't have a weird tonal change at all. What was introduced to you in the beginning was what you got. I mean, even up to the credits, everything was so... I don't want to use the word sad because this film, although it has some sad moments, is not a sad film. And I don't like to use the word moody because there's a mood to moody. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure.
I want to put the right word on what this movie is.
Well, I think you already said it. It's sensitive. This movie lives in between something that's very melancholic and very natural, and having to deal with your day-to-day as a Korean immigrant in Canada, and also with two people, at least the mom, who's a little reserved and keeps to herself and is a little feisty, and so it's just her high conflictness can paint a certain picture that's just a little sensitive at times, and then that's obviously projected onto her son. My favorite part about what you're kind of saying is the naturalistic lens we get. We don't have this melodrama.
Yeah, we're just experiencing
a little snapshot of these people's lives. It reminds me a lot of A Florida Project, actually. Sean Baker's film about those kids living in...
I know Florida Project. Yeah. I didn't like Florida Project or Florida Project.
I think it's I'm not sure, but yeah.
But yeah, I didn't like that movie. I don't know why. Maybe it wasn't.
Well, I think you need to be in the mood for that kind of movie. I also think you need to be in the mood for this kind of movie, which, like I said, I think is very similar in its naturalism, in how it just tries to capture this slice of life situation, but it's not just a slice of... I mean, it is for some people, I guess, dealing with bullying, dealing with feeling alone, dealing with being told you don't have much longer to live. These can be things that are just slice of life moments for people throughout their life.
But I feel like this film also had a couple more things that just made it better than something just from a slice of life. I think I want to say that this film was almost like an appreciation film for the mom and just everything she's done for her son, even though David's not saying it. And it's not, an autobiography, so even Anthony Shim is not saying it. But
his mom literally says it, though, when she tells that story to Simon about...
Yeah.
Which is good. Is it on the nose? Of course. But there's such little said in this movie that revealing a little bit what's behind the curtain of the mom only further kind of naturalizes. This is what she's thinking about, especially now that she's gonna die sooner than later. So I agree.
Especially if you've been in a situation like this, maybe your family has moved from one country to another and you were at a very young age, it kind of gives you that little kick to almost go and thank your parents for doing the best they could to give you a better living situation. I mean, I'm not going to speak for everybody that's moved from one country to another, but here she kind of needed to move. So it's just like this amazing story.
Yeah. And that's one reason I like this movie is because it starts out in that slice of life vein where there doesn't seem to be a lot of point to anything. Not quite in a mumblecore situation either, thank God. The cast isn't big enough for that anyways. You need your little stupid ensemble, but that's where the kind of moodiness kicks in, where we're experiencing these problems with these two characters. And then we get that kind of gut punch of what motherhood is, and especially when you're doing it by yourself.
Yeah.
She was talking to Simon, right, when she was telling that story? Am I remembering that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, she was a little bit, drunk.
Oh, that's right.
And I think that's when she started to tell him about her cancer. I don't know what order that took, like which story came first, but yes, you're right. I like that you say that it was a little bit on the nose, because there's several moments here in this film that were a little bit on the nose and could have been cheesy, but they weren't. And I like that because, when she told that story and then they were going to visit David's dad at his gravesite and she started feeling kind of weak, I'm like, oh my God, okay, he's going to carry her up the mountain. And he does. And I felt stupid for thinking that was going to be cheesy because I was like, oh man.
Well, there's almost this like Aesop fable that kind of kicks in.
Yeah, it's like there's a lesson to be learned here. And especially when we have David go through this change, and he has a literal physical change, which can be kind of silly too. He shaved off his blonde hair, his contacts went missing, and now he looks, not that he didn't look Asian before, but now he looks Asian. And I can see why you would say that, especially with that literal right there in your face. Here's the transformation that happened.
And you're right. In another movie, this could have very easily been cheesy as hell. But it just goes to show you, if you have the right vision and capture it just so, and have these great performances, you can take something, as so-called tropey as an Aesop fable, moral story thing, and it can still be really effective and really beautiful. And it just goes to show you that tropes are just this annoying little thing to nitpick, because they're tropes because they're effective. They're not tropes because they are used over and over again. Sure they are if you're that cynical, but they're an important part of storytelling that's helps kind of familiarize yourself with this in the context of just the human experience and other people's experiences.
Yeah, it's like tropes are a tool, not your story.
Yeah, and people obviously abuse them, but that's because these people are not writers. They're not directors, right? They are, maybe they're commercial writers and commercial directors, and they're speaking to our lowest common denominator, and that's fine. But there's a difference between using a trope and relying on a trope.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this whole AI thing, and there's a difference between creating AI art and then having AI kind of spark inspiration within you. Because it reminds me of course, when little David was eating his lunch, his first lunch or whatever, when he was in elementary school or middle school or whatever, and he whipped out his sushi, and it's just this delicious looking thing. But of course, these kids who, are as far away from Korea as possible, or really any Asian country, and they're kids, right? 6, 7 years old, they get a whiff of this kimchi, whatever's going on in that lunchbox, and they're gonna say something because kids are savages. Obviously, we all know this, right?
Yep.
That's another really potentially cheesy thing, and yes, like it's cheesy, but it also speaks on how profound food is in what we are just as humans, and how it's one of the most fundamental differences between cultures, and what we eat, how we eat it, how we prepare it, what it smells like, what it looks like. And it speaks to the most fundamental senses of tasting and smelling, and then seeing it, and you're like, what is happening as a 6-year-old? And then the other side of that is just, this kid's grown up with this. It's all he knows, potentially. I'm sure he's familiar with whatever other fucking Canadians eat. Sausages, flat
Syrup.
Sausages, syrup, fucking pancakes, bacon. They can't be laughing at food, really. But can you imagine the damage this does?
Oh my god, yes. And that's another thing that I like about this movie, how relatable I found myself being to young David. Because, I mean, exactly what you said. As a kid, that's all you've grown up with. You don't know that there's anything different until someone points it out. And then you feel like a complete weirdo. You're like, oh shit. I don't remember any instances of being bullied about my lunch, but there had been instances of someone saying, what is that? Or that smells funny. Or why would you put hot stuff on candy?
And food is such a profound part of our life that it's a sensitive ass topic.
Yeah.
Especially when you're a kid.
Yes. A lot of the young David bits that happened at his school were just so heartbreaking for me. They really were. I mean, I've seen so many immigration stories, especially, more relatable because, he's Korean. I'm not Korean. I'm Mexican. Completely different worlds. So you would think that I would find some of the other Mexican immigration films more relatable. And I'm not saying that I don't, but I was just very surprised how relatable I felt to young David here. The most heartbreaking scene for me was, I don't know if I might start crying now, but it was the scene when they were at the principal's office and they were basically getting yelled at. And the whole time, this, big white man is telling his mom that she's doing something wrong. You need to teach your kid. We don't hit people. We don't condone violence. And then David is very upset and he says, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry I made a mistake. Which prior to that, he had already been given the okay to hit kids. His mom told him, go ahead. And even then, in that situation, she was telling him, it's okay. You don't need to cry. You did nothing wrong. But David still felt like he did something wrong because that guy was telling him that they did something wrong. Because his mom is foreign and she's in this new world. So why the hell would she be right? And man, that broke me. I was like, oh man, like I can just think what everything that's going through David's little head at that age on not belonging. It was good. It was pretty good. I'd never seen anything quite like that. Especially how it was shot too, where we weren't even focusing on the adults having that conversation. We were focusing on him.
Looking at his mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, well said, man.
And then you have this funny little cheesy thing about his name too being mispronounced and that he should pick, an American name. And, situations like that are almost comical, especially now as an adult. They're so funny because it's hard to pronounce things. I know that.
Of course, yeah.
But it's just so funny, and him referencing that the only name he really knew was Michael Jordan, and his mom's like, you can't be Michael Jordan.
Yeah, it's almost like he's excited to have his American name, and he's gonna die on the hill. It's Michael Jordan. It's awesome. I like that a lot. It reminds you that he's a child, 6 years old, whatever, and that he's going through a really sensitive time. He's picking his name. That's potentially a life decision. Of course, I guess you can just pick up a nickname or whatever, but
yeah, but nicknames are typically given to you for a purpose. I guess this had a purpose.
Yeah, it was that first symbolic kind of transition.
And with the name thing, it even broke me a little too when he picked David, because that's what the teacher said she liked. Like, another situation where we're trying to please the place you're staying at. You don't want to step on anybody's toes.
You don't want to stand out.
You don't want to stand out. And oh my God, like that whole thing just broke me, because situations like that are what made David and so many real life kids quiet. And that's never a reason to be quiet. And Anthony did that in like 20 minutes. Not to mention I was already broken from the beginning. Oh my God, that was intense. That was very intense. The introduction.
Yeah, I've never seen like a sequence of title card oriented things really set the mood quite like that.
Yes, it was. There's an abandoned child. You're like, oh man. And then this child has no origin. They're working all the time, but then she falls in love. You're like, okay, all right. And then her husband gets schizophrenia and then goes to a mental hospital. You're like, damn. And then they say, oh, but he committed suicide. You're like, man. And then he left a newborn behind. And at this point, I'm like teary-eyed, because what else is that next sentence going to say? And then the next two sentences were, this child has no citizenship because he was born out of wedlock. And then that they left Korea. And that was what, 3 minutes?
Maybe.
Is that? Yeah. It was intense reading that. And I don't know if it was way more intense because it was in a different language, so you had to read that. Your little brain had to interpret what was being said here, and you had to listen, because that's what you should do with international films. You should read and listen. So I don't know if it would have had the same impact if that was being told to me in English. But it was intense. I was ready for this movie when that happened. Looking into this movie, I was reading that there was a ratio shift when the mom and David went to Korea to meet his dad's other side of the family. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
I didn't notice that. And I had to like look back at it, and I was like, oh my God, that's so obvious. And I kind of like that I didn't notice that, but I kind of didn't, because I'm trying to study.
Yeah.
And
of course.
Yeah. But it also says about how just into the film I was. I noticed there was something different, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you. I would have probably just said, a color change? I don't know, a mood change?
I think there was a color change too.
Okay.
I think things became a little more like hyper realistic and vibrant. And they were a little more hazy and muted in Canada.
Yeah, it was almost a little gritty, but I just thought that's because we went outside. I don't know. I just found it crazy that, because when you look at it, you see it so obviously, like when you're looking for it, but I completely missed it.
Well, I think that's the sign of a successful transition, because I think it's a little more important to speak to you on a subconscious, level, than you being like, oh, they're feeling less constrained, they're at home kind of thing. And just instead of that, just let the characters, let you know that they're welcome. This will always be a home to them, especially with the addition of the grandpa, my favorite character.
The grandpa is your favorite character? No, that's very well said, because I don't mind not noticing these things until after. I definitely don't. But it just blew me away when when, but it just blew me away when someone said it, and then I went back and looked. I was like, what the? Was I even watching the movie?
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that, because it's just like the editing thing and scores, and or even people in, the background, like a PA or something, like behind the camera, I mean, where these things in some way are the most effective, most successful when you don't notice them, right? They should be working on all cylinders with everything else. Nothing should really stand above the rest unless it's intentional, right?
Mm-hmm.
And of course, it's kind of funny because, like, how do you not notice an aspect change that almost doubles in size? It's like quite a radical change, actually. But I mean, it just goes to show you the visual storytelling can just be that immersive. It's impossible to really say one way or the other now that we're not in the moment, but you probably felt a little relieved when they got to Korea.
I think I did.
You felt like you could breathe. You didn't feel so weighted down.
Yeah, I felt like, okay.
Especially like right when that transition took place, David was just in the middle of a fight, and then that scene was even more constricted. I don't think the aspect ratio was the same, but we were looking a little bit down a hallway between people, and we didn't even see David get hurt. There was like an even tighter, noose around us that was building to that relief of that transition to the green, open, rural area of that part of Korea.
Yeah, it was very nice because it fit with the story of mommy taking care of you after your life is kind of shit right now. You just got the shit beat out of you, and people in school are being hateful.
Your mom just told you she's gonna die.
And your mom just told you she's gonna die. So yeah, I didn't even pick up on that. I just felt it then.
Yeah.
Without thinking about it. And you said it. That's awesome that a movie can do that. And that this movie can do that. But before you talk about the grandpa real quick, I want to bring up the scene where his mom is at the doctor's office, and the doctor's basically telling her she's got pancreatic cancer and she doesn't have very long to live.
And that's such a difficult fucking scene.
I know.
Jesus Christ.
I know. I think I cried during that scene because it was just so hard to watch. Like, you almost want to be there in the TV and telling her, don't worry about it. In Korean, of course. Don't worry about it. I'm going to explain everything to you. But then, kind of putting myself in the story a little bit, coming from a Mexican background, my mom was very dependent on us. She wasn't going to go to the doctor by herself. She was going to bring one of us with her. Which I don't know if that would have been worse if little David, I guess teenage David here, would have had to go with his mom to translate that. I don't know which one would have been just harder to watch. I mean, they're both really hard to watch. Like, your kid is not supposed to be telling you bad news. But then here she is facing it alone because she's had to face all these things alone. And oh my God, it was just awesome.
Yeah, and she was just there for back problems. God damn. They unbelievably capitalize on that scene with, I don't know if it's the very next scene, but where she does tell David, but that build up to where they fight a little bit. She's not here right now. She's thinking about their stuff. She's trying to figure out the right time to tell David. They fight over eating, and David's, an angsty teenager who actually, has some problems. He feels alone. He gets bullied. He doesn't have a dad, right? So things blow up in almost a funny way. It's always kind of funny when a teenager and a parent clash, right?
Yeah.
It's usually pretty stupid, but it naturalizes itself in some kind of sensitivity when it becomes clear that the mom needs to say something to David. He's like, oh, he becomes immediately level-headed, kind of thing. And it's, I don't know, it's like really amazing.
And the way they tell us, the audience, was pretty cool because we were looking at the mom, she said it, and then we hear David downstairs. I wasn't sure if he had left, like if he had already walked out or what, or if he was going to respond But he did. He responded that, cue in the level-headedness. And then the camera was like going to pan to his face around the stairs. I was like, this is it for me. I'm not going to be able to watch his face because his mom just told him this. It was good. Now tell me about the grandpa. Was that your favorite scene or your favorite sequence of the film?
No, I don't think that was my favorite sequence. I'm not sure what would have been, because there's 4 or 5 that are just really stellar. But I did really like the shot where they were eating and the grandma was like in the other room with her back to everybody, and she was still kind of there but not. It was so stupid and funny, you know?
And such a grandma thing to do.
Yeah. I really liked that, and it kind of reminded me of that shot in Okja and some other Korean films where there's this intent on capturing a situation, a scene playing out in a home, like in a home area, through other rooms.
Yeah, Godzilla, I think, did that.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I like it a lot. I don't think I've ever noticed that in an American film. There's a lot of texture and voyeuristic kind of feelings that come with it, and it's super neat. It's probably the coolest thing I've ever seen as far as like cinematic kind of treatments. I like that a lot. Yeah, the grandpa is definitely my favorite character because he's the old Asian dude.
Of course, that's your spirit animal.
Old Asian dude.
Yep.
As soon as he popped up on screen, I was like, all right, there's my favorite character. Yeah, I also liked that the mom was calling them, grandma and grandpa and stuff, and there was this timidness, shyness, because she's not sure how this is going to go. And then the entire time outside, it's kind of balanced with that grandma being the way she is, and then this, tender grandpa. And then we see the transition between kind of cautious to very loving uncle, right? There's this whole trifecta of emotion happening. And I love that the grandma's hanging out the window and stuff. It's a great shot. It's a great imagery. I don't know what it fucking is about Korean households that invite really great imagery in how they capture it on camera. Maybe I'll get sick of it after my 150th Korean film. I don't know, but it's amazing. It's so amazing how they have this back and forth between, kind of a traditional grandpa to the mom just talking, and then the uncle's moving about, and he transitions into a warming uncle and that grandma in the window. It's excellent. It's truly excellent. And of course, it completely transitions into them being very welcome and then coming in to eat. And, grandpa's just got some wise stuff to say. And that does lead into 2 other sections I like a lot. I like the bath scene. We have this moment of kind of belongingness with David and his uncle. We have this retransformation into his Koreanness through a funny couple instances. Loses contacts.
His blonde hair is a gang member's hair.
Yeah. But potentially my favorite scene was when they were on the mountain at the tombstone of his dad. And he was like kind of just trying to follow his mom's lead of them praying or bowing and just trying to find that, I don't know, like cultural respect by watching his mom, because he has no idea.
Yeah.
He's been in America basically all of his life. He's lost all of his Koreanness outside of the household. And just how long that scene is of just them just being kind of a complete family in some way. And there's just, I guess, the inevitable moment of closure happening at the same time. And then it ends on the best part of the movie where the dad's dad tells David's mom to move on, to find someone new, to not be single for the rest of your life, that it's not fair for you. You deserve to be happy. And that's just coming from the dad, who killed himself. Coming from the dad's dad telling the mom to find a new man is just really powerful and very cool. And I was like, I knew it. My favorite character when he said that. I was like,
yeah, it just embraces the whole tenderness that this character has, because he welcomes them immediately into the house. Let me get you some warm food. And they're like, no, we don't want to. impose, there's that crazy lady right there by the window. He's like, no, don't listen to her. You're coming in because I want you to come in. And I mean, that scene where he basically is giving her permission to do it. It's not, I don't know if it's something she's been thinking about or what, but it doesn't matter.
But the fact that she's back implies some kind of inability to move on, right?
I guess so, but I think the most important thing was to let David know where he came from. And she's not going to be around much longer, obviously, so this is her chance to do it. Because she's not worried about marrying Simon or whatever his name was. She's worrying about giving her kid the information he deserves to know, because he has been asking this whole time about his dad. And I love that. I love the bits and pieces of his culture that he's getting to experience, and how well he's taking those. Like you said, he's mimicking his mom and what she's doing because he wants to learn. He wants to respect. When he pours the sake from that green bottle for his dad, he was already mimicking what he had just learned doing it for his grandpa. And little things like that just make this whole situation so sweet and so graceful too. It's very nice. It's very well done. One thing I didn't like about that sequence with the dad in the mountain was when she screamed out, relieving her emotions and everything she's been dealing with. I don't like that she screamed once and it was audible, and then the next 2-3 screams, it wasn't. I wish it would have been audible the whole time. I wanted to hear her let it out those whole 3 times. There's my one thing I would change.
Yeah, and I can see that being a difficult decision because I think the last thing Anthony wants to invite is the melodrama and overreacting.
Okay.
But this might be that moment to embrace the hysteria that comes with, some of the human experience. She's dying. She can be a little hysterical,
Yeah.
And she is, so he tries to balance that. So I think that's what that is.
Because the first scream, I guess it's just people screaming in movies when they're feeling like that, when they're pent up. It reminds me of the Guardians movie. It just it triggers my tear glands.
It's a dangerous game because I don't know if it always works on you, but it can be kind of cringe if it's not built up in the right way.
Very true. Very true. I can't think of another movie, if there's been one, where a character screams in that kind of situation and it's like, oh, don't do that. But I'm going to keep an eye out. And then this beautiful, sensitive movie ends with the credits and the sun just going down. He didn't have to do that.
He went a little hard, didn't he?
He went a little hard, just saying.
What do you think of the score? I think that's actually a standout part of this movie. It's similar to Past Lives and just really moody. It helps establish that mood.
Yes, it definitely helped with the tone of the movie. A different score could have completely changed how we would have seen these situations. It would have probably taken this from this sweet tenderness to just pure sadness, or something that didn't quite touch your heart like it's obviously trying to do. I think the score and the editing definitely helped establish the mood.
I also liked all the sections where we saw his mom at work, and then she slowly made friends and then became little gossipers and stuff. It was awesome. They were these little moments of relief.
Yeah, I like that they incorporated those. It's just like you said in the beginning, it's a very slice of life movie. So we needed to see her at work. We needed these moments with her. So I appreciate them. I did not appreciate the one where the guy smacked her butt. I wish she would have punched him. That would have been funny.
Well, she did say she was going to kill him.
That's way better. But I don't know, just something about her telling David, you hit somebody if they do something to you. Kind of her, backing up herself or proving to herself that if she can do it, her son can do it kind of situation. But I mean, little things that really are wonderfully done. And if they were done a different way, would have still been okay.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, thank you for that talk. And thank you for watching this movie with me.
Thank you for watching this movie with me.
Do you have a budget guess for me here today?
Yeah, my budget guess is $7 million. I have no clue. I just thought it'd be about half of Past Lives. That's where that number comes from, but I have no idea. With how short the wiki page was, I'm thinking maybe even less.
Yeah, I think this movie was much less than that. There's nothing conclusive on wiki. But if I had to guess, it was probably only a few million, if that.
I mean, it just goes to show, really.
Absolutely. Everything's so confined. We don't have a lot of big open movements. The most, which is an artistic choice, of course, or a restraint that Anthony worked within, that made the film even more effective. Like, the most open scene we probably had in Canada was the playground.
Yeah.
And that was also briefly the most open moment we had with David, right? Until things turned. It looked like things might be looking up for little David, and then they became much worse.
So quickly, too. Man.
I would guess probably less than 2 million.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It says over on Letterboxd with only 13,000.
13,000? That's nothing.
I know, right? That the average is at 4.1. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, that's very well deserved. I gave it a 3.5, but I wouldn't be opposed to giving it a 4. Especially after having this conversation with you. It just kind of opens up some of the things you really appreciate about a movie that you don't immediately think about right after watching.
Yeah, no joke. And there's something kind of inversive about this film and Past Lives, where we had a very linearity in cinematography and editing, and how big life can be and how far things can take you. And then here, it's much more constrained, literally in almost a box, aspect ratio, and how that can be blown up under the right conditions. How we go through that transition, much more important here.
Yeah, well said.
But yeah, thank you guys for listening to this episode of The Filmistines. Remember, you can catch us every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday with new episodes over on patreon.com/Filmistines, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pandora, Spotify, all the goods. Shout out to our Korean filmmakers.
Yes, shout out to all our Korean filmmakers.
Which just displays all of American films with Korean filmmakers.
I don't know about that far.
Oh, okay.
But maybe we can keep 3.
David Lynch, who doesn't make movies anymore.
I'm not keeping David Lynch.
Remember to leave nice thoughts, comments, ideas over on our Patreon. Come subscribe. We appreciate all the support. Give us $1. We just beaten rice over here.
Dang, you're getting rice?
But until next time, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of The Filmistines. Thanks for tuning in and joining us on our cinematic journey. We hope you enjoyed the discussion, gained some new insights and perspectives on the world of movies. Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, especially Patreon, at patreon.com/Filmistines. And follow us on social media for more film-related content. We love hearing from our listeners, so if you have any feedback, suggestions, movie recommendations, or book recommendations, please feel free to reach out to us. Until next time, keep watching, keep loving the magic of movies. This is The Filmistines, signing off.